Alright, today Erick is going to review one of his stupid waifu games that only weebos like him care about. Actually, I gotta admit, this one's pretty damn interesting. Yeah, don't tell Erick I said that. I heard you! Damn it! Released on PS4, later ported to PC and Switch. This is one of those Idea Factory and compiled hard JRPGs. However, it's different from many of their previous silly titles with nothing but dumb humor and raunchy fan service. The story here is actually quite dark and even tragic at some points, with some very interesting plot twists. The reason why is because the script was written by a fiction studio this time around, which includes the same guys who wrote the scripts for all of those Steins Gate visual novels. It also has a very unique battle system, which is one of the highlights of the game. So let's take a deep dive into this bizarre and sexy video game. The story takes place in a world where the Empire sends knights to hunt witches because they believe them to be the root of all evil, but also because they eventually transform into mindless dragons and start attacking people. That last part turns out to be true, but it's the first part that goes into question throughout the entire game. Protagonist Sephi is one of those knights, but during his encounter with the witch Minessa, he ends up drinking dragon blood and transforms into a witch himself. He therefore is left with no choice than to join the witches and eventually fight against his former allies. So he realizes the witches aren't bad at all once he starts living with them in their secret den. Eventually the party meets another witch called Charlotta, which sends the plot into a downward spiral. Yes, she's gorgeous and sexy, but she's also by far the most intriguing and tragic character in the game. So despite the high amounts of dialogue, there aren't that many slice of life shenanigans, and thanks to that, the story marvels around its dark and emotional writing. Of course, the translation isn't all that great because this is a 2019 game, but thankfully it has no politicized crap. And the English dub is okay, but I strongly recommend you use the Japanese dub instead. Censorship, however, was added only to the PS4 version, with this saucy shot of Minessa cropping it down. This is the original. Yeah! And then there's this other scene with a character called Laponette during a steam bath scene. They just added a little bit more steam for the PS4 version. Yeah. Ironic, considering the transformations of the girls during battle are left intact and they can be seen in their full glory with no extra layers added to cover them. Anyway, the PC and Switch versions are 100% uncensored. The graphics in this game are a mixed bag. While the 2D art style is sexy, detailed and appealing, more so than in most compiled hard JRPGs, the in-game graphics are questionable. The 3D models look fine, especially during combat and exploration, but they kinda seem to be not a great resolution. Most of the 2D backgrounds are also great and quite detailed, but most of the 3D backgrounds, like the dungeons you explore, are super bland and uninspiring. I get it that they're visiting ruins and temples, but this just looks mediocre at best. The Switch version looks the same, but of course the resolution and frame rate, as almost always, are worse. Steam version seems to be the best looking one of them all. The music is nice, but it's mostly forgettable despite having some over-the-top choir singing. In fact, some of the music, like the battle theme for example, were done by Motoi Sakuraba, and yeah, they're pretty damn good. The gameplay in this game is as follows. You will start every chapter with several dialogue scenes until you have access to the world map and the den. The den is your base of operations with several shops and gameplay mechanics. The Curious Shop sells weapons, armor, accessories, items, materials, and gifts. Materials can also be gathered in the dungeons, but we'll get to that later. You also have a mixed elixir place, which is really important, since the economy in this game is a bit crappy and the best equipment is always expensive, and since the game's freaking brutal even on easy mode, it's a good idea to use these elixirs. You craft them with materials you find out there and mix them with cores to have one of your party members drink them, all in order to trigger a boss battle. Yup. The objective is to merely win so you can get one powerful piece of equipment at the end. The elixirs go by levels and the cores go by ranking, so you have to pay attention to the level of your party before mixing one, else you'll end up wasting your time with a tough battle that'll give you something mediocre, since all of these fights barely give you any experience or money. Another option in the menu is the bonding system. Yeah, you have a waifu system in this game where Sephi can increase the affinity to max with any witch girl to get his waifu ending after the credits. You achieve that by giving the girls gifts that you find out there or that you buy at the store. For every circle you complete, you'll get a bunch of short scenes and dialogue. Lastly, the most important thing of them all, the 3 little witches. You have to feed them dragon food you'll find in the dungeons or else they'll go crazy. You see, there are 3 endings in this game: madness, normal and true. Now, the whole party has a madness level and it increases depending on some of the choices you'll make. There's 1 dialogue choice per chapter and bad answers increase the level. Getting wiped out during battle also increases the level. And if 1 or more of these 3 girls transform into a dragon, you'll get locked out of the true ending. To get the true ending, you'll need your madness level below 75% and all 3 girls alive. How do you achieve that? By reloading your save file if you die instead of returning to base, by making the right choices every chapter, and most importantly, by keeping all of these 3 girls alive. And this last part is extremely hard to do, because yes, you need to feed them to keep them happy and avoid transforming. However, by feeding them, you also increase their purple bar, and if it fills up, they'll transform. So you need to always give them food that increases the least amount of the yellow bar, because once it fills up, a small chunk of the purple bar will fill up. What makes everything super hard though, is that the girls get hungrier on real freaking time. Story and dialogue don't count, but exploration, gathering materials, fighting bosses, and grinding does count. And since this game's extremely hard, it's naturally a grind fest. So my advice to counter this to get the true ending on your first playthrough is to play it on easy. You won't have to grind that much and prevent any girl from transforming. Also going back regularly to base to feed them before exploring too much. Thankfully, there are items and skills that teleport you back to the save points in the dungeons, and don't worry, easy mode is quite challenging as well, nevertheless. And speaking about difficulty, let's get into the battle system, at last. It's played on turns with up to 3 allies, but each can have a support ally in the back that they can switch to at any given time with no turn penalty whatsoever. Enemies will be in front of your characters at the top, middle or ground, so during your turn you can move your characters in those layers for a physical attack. For magical attacks, however, you don't have to move at all. But it's always preferable to have every character in a different place, since enemies love to cast area of effect attacks, and they're quite nasty, especially the bosses. Especially since most of them get 2, 3, or 4 turns in a goddamn row! As soon as you learn the heal party spell, or any party buffs, use them. Buffs don't stack, but they last throughout the whole battle, thankfully. Every character has 1 regular attack that you can use 3 times in a row against an enemy, but every other attack or spell costs SP. Now every single enemy is only weak to 1 element and 1 type of weapon attack, bosses included, and most of them are literally immune to almost every single other attack or spell. You can use healing items to heal, but reviving items are extremely scarce and not available at the store, so make sure to learn a revival spell and equip it to everybody. You know what else they don't sell at the store? SP recovery items. And on top of it all, you can't use those during battle. So if you run out of SP and the enemy is only weak to spells, switch that character out or you'll be stuck doing useless regular attacks. When enough damage or actions other than guard are done, characters will transform into sexy mode. On this state, their damage will be tripled or more, so you can start abusing the enemy's weaknesses and kill them faster. Obviously, these transformations only last for a few turns, and the turn order, by the way, is defined by the speed stat. You also have a Devour skill, and that's how you will learn most skills. When you're not transformed, you can use any of them once the enemy's HP bar has been lowered, or by RNG chance you have a high rate by devouring them. Naturally, when you're transformed, your chances increase, and these sexy, skippable animations are there for that. Since most enemies are dragon types, you'll get 1 dragon core if the devouring is successful. Outside of battle, you have a Dragon Core section for each character. In there, you can use factor points which you get after every battle to unlock all types of passive and active skills, including a bunch of random stat increases. Every core has a certain amount of them, so make sure to unlock them all, especially for those stat increases. But passive and active skills have to be equipped, and every character has a limited space, which is 20, and every skill costs from 1 to 6 points to equip. So despite learning a crap ton of skills the more you devour, you'll only be able to equip the bare minimum, and if a boss fight is only weak to one type of attack or spell, you will have to either reset the damn game and equip every single character with the magic spell the boss is weak to. Yeah, now you see why this game's stupidly hard, and why it's okay to play it on easy on your first run. I got through it that way and obtained the true ending, so you should consider doing the same. Overall, the game's great. While in-game graphics and music aren't that special, the incredibly shocking plot twists and the dark narrative easily make up for it, apart from the fan service and the sexy transformations, of course. And while combat is unique and original, it suffers from so many penalties and nasty spikes, but in my case, easy mode made me enjoy the combat a whole lot more, while still retaining a high degree of challenge. So this is still a really good game, and honestly, one of the best compiled hard JRPGs that I have ever played.